Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Hardeep and I am one of the CubeStronauts and we are working on the CKA certification. Today's topic is logging and monitoring. It covers about 10% of the total weightage of exam. Uh, One thing to note about this is it doesn't, the exam curriculum or requirements are to use native tools only. You are not required to go and learn Prometheus, Grafana, Fluentd, Elasticsearch, all these third-party tools. You are not required to learn in order to pass this exam. What you are required to know is how to go and troubleshoot or collect logs within your cluster, which will be provided to you during the exam, right? It's hands-on, so understanding the concepts and topics is very important. Uh, when we talk about logging, there are different components that you need to know about. One is system components or your cluster components. That is, it could be one of your pods for control plane, maybe API server, your scheduler, right? All those components that run on your master node or control plane, they are called system components, right? Or it could be the daemons that are running in Linux operating system, right? So you should know how to look at Linux logs, how to use maybe general CTL command too, right? That helps. Where are the logs stored? All that, right? Second component is your application logs. How do you go and see logs for a container, right? How do you identify where a container is running, what node it is running, and see the logs, see the raw logs of a container? You can see the logs using kubectl logs. For example, here I have given, right? You can run kubectl logs and give a name of the pod. You can also do kubectl logs, give the name of the pod -c container. That means if you have more than one containers inside a pod, you will have to specify a name of the container. If you don't do that, by default it picks one of them and it will show you the logs, or you add a option all containers, right? When you say logs hyphen when you say kubectl logs pod name and then all containers, then you'll see logs from all containers. You can also add prefix is equal to true. Then along with those containers, you will along with those logs, you'll get some prefix. That prefix will say this log is for this particular container. Very interesting. If you have more than one container, seeing logs from all containers, it could be kind of overwhelming with prefix. It makes it easy. All container, remember that option. But in exam, they might ask you, give us logs from a single container. This is how you do it, right? kubectl logs -c container name. You can look at the logs for a container that previously was there or died, right? So you run kubectl logs previous and name of the pod. So if that pod existed before and it crashed, system restarted it, the old pod logs are still there. So you need to have the same pod name. That is how it is able to go back and look into and get you the logs, right? Another way of looking at things is events. So you can do describe, and at the bottom you get the events, right? You kubectl describe node, kubectl describe pod. At the end you see some events, or you run command kubectl events for, and you can say node and name of the node, or kubectl event for pod and name of the pod. That's how you get events, right? So those are the things in terms of logging. Now let's see it in a real life. Let's run some commands, right? So what we are doing is running a container named and running a pod named test and using an image nginx, right? So k get pods -o wide, right? So next command, if you look at the documentation I was showing, that's the exact same command, right? So what am I getting? I'm getting the pod name. It shows there is one container inside it and it is in running state. Both of them are in running state. It has not restarted. 14 seconds ago it started. IP of that container, what node it is running on. Why it is important to know the node running on? Because that's how we're going to go to that node and kind of look at the file system or using native operating system tools to get the logs, right? So how do we see the logs otherwise? Let's say if we don't know about the operating system or node where it is running, and you know, very easiest way with the Kubernetes, you can run k logs and give the name of the pod, right? And hyphen c test, right? So the hyphen c is container, and this is a result of imperative command which I ran to create the container. I ran like this, and this is the result of it, that it names the container also as test. So how do I know? K describe pod and name of the pod. If I describe it, you can see here containers and it says test. There is only one container after that condition start, right? You can see only one container and container name is test. If you want to change this name, you'll have to run commands declaratively. You want to know more, please go and check my other video that I recorded before this one. I believe that that's the one has more details. Anyways, so we looked into describe, and you can see the events that happened, right? Similarly, k events hyphen for pod test. I think k events for pod, right? So you can see this is me testing some time back, and this is the our current container, right? So k logs and name of the pod hyphen previous. If I do this, it says um, bad request, previous terminated container test and pod test not found, right? So there is no container inside pod test that existed before, so it's not able to show us the logs of that is what it means. Since I don't have anything other than that single nginx running inside, you are not able to see more, right? But anyways, next thing is looking at the output of your kubectl get kget po. If you run this, you are getting some columns, but I don't want to see those columns. I want custom columns, right? So to see custom columns, you can say hyphen o custom columns. You don't need to remember this command. So you can say k get hyphen help and grep I custom, right? If you see, here is that command exactly similar to what I wrote, right? So during exam, it saves time if you know how to find help. You don't need to grep, you can do help, and then you can see through all this. It is very lengthy output. That's why I did this. Makes life easy if you know how to quickly look for it, right? Anyways, why am I looking it this way? I want to know the pod name. I want to know namespace. I want to know pod UUID and the name of the container. We will be using these details when we are looking at operating system level. When I say operating system level, remember I ran this command. It said our container is running on kube worker 2. So let's get into the kube worker 2. If you are in production environment or using some other method of building your cluster, you'll do SSH, right? For me, I'm gonna do multipass shell, and because I'm running cluster with multipass. If you don't know what is multipass and how to use it, I would say please go and check previous videos. In my old videos, I got all this covered. Now here you see I'm exporting variables. So I'm saying export pod UID. I need to use the latest pod UID. This is the one, and rest all is same. Why same? Because namespace is same, pod name is same, container name is same. I'm able to kind of copy paste from here. How do I know? When I ran command, it showed me pod name, it showed me the namespace, it shows the container name too. So once we have exported all these, now it makes our life easy. We can start using native tools, right? CRI/CTL. I'm running it with sudo because you cannot run it as a normal user. You need sudo. You can do sudo su and avoid sudo after that, but that's not recommended method of doing things. But anyways, idea here is we are grepping for line starting with container, which is basically header, and I am also looking for pod, and pod is test, because that's the container we want to look into, right? And how do we see the logs of that container? So easy command is sudo cri ctl logs, and you give the name of the pod, right? So if I give you this command, what it says, sudo crictl logs, this is running the same command, but it is grepping or getting the very first column of the output. So it is grepping for pod name and getting the first column, and that is what it is kind of showing the logs of. So if I run it, you can see the output, right? So I could literally do this sudo crictl logs and pick the name of that, or the output of that command, and you can see it is, this command was exactly doing this thing, right? All right, next, this was one way of looking at logs. Now the logs are stored in varlog pods, but you will also see some logs in varlog containers. So let's look at it first. Verilog containers, you can see it shows in red color, it is pointing somewhere else, right? This arrow, it tells me, and this L in the beginning tells me these are soft links. So where are they pointed? They are pointed within Verilog pods, right? So LSL, why not look in Verilog pods? It won't work because permissions. So if I do LSLD, when I say permissions, I want to show you others don't have permissions to read and write. It is owned by root, group is root, right? So do sudo LSL, and now we'll see some outcome or output of it. All right, now we know all that now, right? How do we know if you had, let's say, thousands of container in this node? How would you find your container? You find it using uuid, right? So here I was looking into Verilog containers, and that's how I found it, but I could eyeball it very easily and find it here, right? The format for this is, first is namespace. If you look in the output, this is the namespace, default namespace. This is your pod, this is the pod uuid, and then slash, this is your container, and this is the kind of log file, right? So namespace, pod, pod uuid, container name 0.log. That's what I'm kind of trying to show you also, right? So let's look at it again. I'm running same command and it shows me the logs. So what did I do this time? I did sudo tail. Tail gives last 10 lines. By default, you can do tail minus 20, tail minus 50. It will show you as many as you specify, and as long as those file has that many number of lines, right? All right, what am I doing tail on? I'm doing tail on this one actually, right? So above command, the one I ran here, it looks kind of complex. It is not. Basically sudo tail varlog pods and this one, and inside that I had uh, a container name and 0.log, right? And that's about it. That's what that command was showing. All right, so now you see what am I doing? I'm trying to kind of make my life easy by defining those variables. Now let's use the format with the variables, right? Namespace, pod name, uuid of pod, container name, and log, and you can see the result, right? And if I rather than doing all this, if I do echo and paste it like this, you will see the output as the file name, right? All right, now you understand where the logs are and how to go and access them, right? That was the idea behind logging. uh, this is useful if you are trying to troubleshoot some of the even system components, right? So let's become root and let's see, because we need to look at more containers, more commands, right? Let's say you want to see the logs of kubeproxy, right? Then what will you do? You can do cd var log pods and get inside the kubeproxy, and here this is the container, and inside that you have log files like file number 2, or you can say cat or tail or whatever, right? Tail 3 dot, right? So if I say ls, it shows me there are two files. So lsl, one is file 2, one is file 3. It keeps rotating the files, that's why. But that's the idea. That is how you see the logs, right? Another way was, let me try to move my video away a little bit if I can. All right, systemctl, uh, then systemctl status, cube let, and this is how you can see logs too, right? It shows the service logs. Another method, excuse me, journalctl hyphen u. U is the unit. I know unit for this one is kubelet. So journalctl hyphen u. Now it is showing you logs. I'm doing left and right arrow keys to kind of scroll. This is another way of looking at kind of logs, right? So journalctl. It is showing you from the beginning. You can add options like from last 20 minutes, last 30 minutes, or you can do hyphen f also. If you do hyphen f, this is follow. Follow means it is gonna keep monitoring that if there is a new pod created, pod deleted, it'll keep showing things. Like you want continuous observability and you want to see the logs changing live, that is how you do it, with the help of hyphen f command. Anyways, getting out of it and getting back to the topic, right? Oh yeah, one more thing I want to show: multi-pass list. Let's get into our master node. So multi-pass shell, you'll do SSH if you are in any other environment, right? Sudo su var log pods. You will notice there are too many pods. Why? Because there is a controller manager, there is a API server, there is a HCD, so you have access to all these resources if you need to troubleshoot. During your exam, there'll be questions where you'll have to work on API server, you'll have to modify things. So knowing where to go and look for these logs, right? It helps. So uh, I would say learn about it, and when you need to modify, you generally go to etc Kubernetes and manifest, and these are the kind of static pod definitions. That is what was kind of shown here in the directory of var log pods, right? You see all of these different components. Cilium, it is our CNI. That's why it is showing up here. Core DNS is here, which is one of the component installed in your kube system namespace. So if you run get po hyphen n kube system, and whatever you see here, these are the kind of containers for almost all of it, right? All right. And with that, I think we can get to the next topic, which is our monitoring and metrics. So during the exam, you'll have access to metric server, which is kind of built-in metric server. It's very easy to install. It is single command, and when you run this command, it'll create some cluster roles. It created service account, cluster role bindings, then finally a service, a deployment, and you can see it created one API too, right? And that's how, with the help of API, things work. So let's see, where did it get deployed? I know because I was looking into it. It gets deployed in Cube system. So Cube system get, let's say, deployment, and you can see metric server, and it is not ready, right? For that I have a solution, but let's see, get pods and metric server. It says running, but it is not ready, right? So how do we figure out what is happening? This is again going back to the logging. So cube system logs and give the name of the pod. If you run it now, it says, failed to scrape node, and because it doesn't know the SAN name or IP address for kubemaster, it fails. It fails for worker one, worker two, and master. So that is what is resulting it in being pending. You can do k describe, hold on, k cube system describe pod and this, and here what I was saying earlier, I was showing you earlier, right? There are conditions. You see, pod ready to start containers true, initialize true. Is container ready? It is false, right? Container is not ready, right? Pod scheduled, we know it got scheduled somewhere, right? We can scroll up to find where it is scheduled. It is scheduled on 02 node. We can look at kget po and hyphen o wide. That also tells us similar story. We get some details here too. So this is how you figure out what is wrong with your container or your pod, why it is not running, right? Now let's fix that. There is a patch. If you look into the documentation, it also talks about it. Basically what we are doing here is we are running kubelet insecurity less, that this is what we are deploying, and we patched it. What I'm waiting for is why it is kind of stuck, because I said kubectl wait for condition ready. This condition ready comes from here. Remember I was showing you describe, and this ready was set to false. So what this one, this after it patches, see it says patched. After this command is run, it is waiting for this command. So it is waiting for pod to be ready. See, it says pod, and we are looking for a label, this type of pod in namespace cube system, and we are waiting for 120 seconds, right? That's what we are doing. I can do control C. I can show you what is happening in the background. So k hyphen n cube system get po, and you can see there is the pod. It just started 61 seconds ago, and if we run this, and let's see, I will not do timeout, and it says condition met, right? This is how you can wait for something to happen, right? In this case, now it says it found the pod is in ready state, so our condition met, right? All right, that's not the topic of our discussion today, but let's get into the nodes, right? So kubectl top nodes. Now it is showing you CPU usage, CPU percentage, memory percentage, right? Which node is using how much, right? This is kind of easy way to look at your nodes. Similar thing you can do for pods, but with pods you can do hyphen a too, right? Hyphen a means it is going from default to all other namespaces as well. So it is showing you different kind of resources. Then you can sort this by CPU and memory, right? For example, here we are sorting by memory. If I say hyphen, sorry, I'm doing it for node by default, it's global construct. It doesn't matter. I hyphen a is not needed. It works with pods. So CPU, right? So you see this, instead of this, if I say pod, CPU, pod, memory, you see the, it basically it is trying to sort by that value, right? Now let's see for all pods. Now you can see it is showing you Cube API server using the most of the memory, right? This is one of the question that in exam they might ask you, give print the name of the container that is using the most memory or most CPU, right? They might say do it in a particular namespace, and if that's what they ask, then do hyphen n and give the namespace name. And you see now it doesn't show default, right? And the very first column also disappeared. It doesn't show the namespace, right? So when you specify a namespace, then you are getting output from that particular namespace only. So this is CPU, this is memory, right? So easy, very easy. That is what you need to do during exam. It's very easy to run these commands if you remember these, right? And finally, debugging the application, we looked into kubectl logs, we looked into kubectl describe parts, we looked into logs previous, we also looked into logs for a particular pod, and hyphen f is follow, continuously follow, like I was showing you with journalctl. You can do same thing with the kubectl too. So you can continuously monitor the logs as they flow through, right? Then with pods hyphen o wide, kubectl get pods so wide, we are able to get the nodes on what node it is running. And then during exam they might want you to investigate something, right? Why something failed. You look at the logs, you describe a pod, that's how you kind of figure out, right? And I think all of it I already covered. And yeah, finally, I would like to share some resources where you can go and read more. But uh, I would say practice, use the concepts that are shown here, launch some containers, run some commands, try to find uh, where that pod got scheduled, and look at the logs from the node, right? Or try running kubectl log command, and that way you can try to find. All right. I think my camera is blurring my face too. Anyways, next time I'll disable this so that it doesn't do this nonsense. It doesn't blur me out. All right. With that, I'll be closing. I'll upload this video soon. And good luck. If you have any questions, reach out to me, comment on my video, let me know. And I'll try to continue posting videos regularly during every week, but life happens. Sometimes I get busy. Uh, Take care, guys. We'll see you next time.